Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.
Well, guys, welcome back to episode number 14 of Off the Track, here for another Wednesday show. I'm your host, Tanner Holmes here, and to my left, I have my best friend and co-host, Bennett Gooch. Bennett, we had another actually not so busy weekend, kind of laid back, but there was some action.
Yeah, kind of a bummed weekend for me at least, but I know on your side of things, with Carly and everything, she got to run the sprint car, which was super cool. Yeah, not the case for me, because I know this episode we were going to plan on talking about my weekend racing. Well, I didn't end up racing this weekend because on Wednesday I woke up and I pinched a nerve in my neck. And one thing about me, this is for all the fans out there, if there's one thing I hate more than anything in the world, it's shots and medical stuff. And I'll tell you straight up, I've passed out just about every time I've gone to the hospital. It runs in my family. The smell, call me what you want. I hate medical stuff, all right?
Yeah.
So when I woke up, put your chin to your right shoulder. That's the way my head was locked. And if you moved it, it was like the worst pain in the world. Dang. Like, put me down now because it hurt so bad. And I told my mom, like, yeah, you got to take me to the ER. And you know, if Bennett Gooch is saying, take me to the hospital, something's wrong. So she was like, no, you're good. Just take some pills and lay down for a bit. So that's what we ended up doing. And then, like I said, it was a pinched nerve. And I'm feeling a lot better now, but I still feel it a little bit. So, you know, my family just made the call. It's probably best to give it, not, you know, give it a week. Yeah, give it some rest time. And I think that's smart because I was thinking to myself, okay, let's say I'm good and I'm in the race car and one bump goes wrong and it pinches again. Literally, if you can't even move it just laying down, how are you going to, for one, get me out of a dang dwarf car because I'm 6 foot freaking 3 and the dwarf car's tiny? And two, how am I going to get a helmet off with the Hans? Like, it would all be bad. So anyways, yep, we didn't race this weekend. We did get to go to the Red Bluff Roundup, which if a lot of people don't know, my family's big into rodeo through my family, or through my mom and dad. My dad's the president of a rodeo association. So we did get to go do that Sunday, and it was also fun to watch everything else in the racing world and follow along with how Carly did this weekend. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I can agree. One of the things you said, like shots and stuff like that, for anybody, just a fun fact about me, I'm the same way. Like, I've actually... I am not the person you want to be like sitting next to when they have to put a shot in my arm because this is something I always tell people. Like, if you ever want to kidnap me, you don't got to hold me at gunpoint or anything like that. Just pull up a shot and I'll pass out. Yeah. So you can go ahead and grab me when I pass out. I hate shots. Yeah, needles are not, I feel the exact same way. That's no good. But anyway, it was a great weekend. And actually, that's our guest back here for episode number 14. Carly joined us for episode number 2. And we're definitely going to be having her on the show. And one of these times, maybe I could convince her to just be like a third co-host for a couple episodes to bring in another viewpoint. But episode number 14, we actually interview my younger sister, Carly, and she did a great job this last weekend, just trying to get laps, get back up to full speed. And one of the main things that I actually have some footage that I'll be playing as I talk about this, but one of the funny things with Carly watching her race is, like, for myself, when I'm at the races, I'm obviously super focused on like the videoing stuff and trying to, you know, make sure I produce a good vlog and bring content. But funny with Carly, since Carly doesn't really do any of that stuff, is right when she hopped out of her car, like, you know, after the heat race or after qualifying, immediately putting up on a jack, you know, checking stagger, air pressure, everything. Like, she was a one-man or one-woman show, I guess you could say, this weekend. So that was kind of interesting to see that because she helps a lot on my car. But now that it's her deal, you know, she's just running the show. So we interviewed her for about 30 minutes here in studio, and it's always fun to kind of change up the pace, you know, from maybe talking to someone over the phone to literally having them sit just a couple feet away from you. So here is Carly Holmes after her first sprint car race of 2021, turning her first laps, as we interview her right here in studio here in Southern Oregon. So joining us here today for episode number 14 of Off the Track, she does not need much of an intro because she's my younger sister. She already joined us for episode 2, and I'm sure you're going to see a bunch of her on the podcast here in the near future. Carly, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I think one thing to kind of clear the air before we get started, like I said, Carly, you were on the show for episode 2, and we're trying to give you a little bit of a redo today because as host, we didn't do the greatest job during that episode of letting you talk and asking the right questions. You were also a little bit shy, so we're kind of both giving ourselves another chance here today.
Yeah, we got a little criticism there. Probably not letting Carly speak as much as she should have. But that's the thing about Carly; she's a little shy on camera, but off camera, she's just
A handful.
So we're going to give it another shot here today. And we got this new little setup with our just one desk instead of two, which I think is going to be cool if we have other people in studio to kind of have it like this so you can see all three of us talking. It's not awkward how we have to look and whatnot. So, Carly, what we're going to be talking about here today is really expanding on your weekend at the Cottage Grove Speedway. You ran your first sprint car race, which we talked about on that episode number 2, back in October. You ran your first laps, ran your first race, and then this last Saturday, you ran your second ever race after not being in the car for 6 months. And we did a lot of lead up kind of into it. You guys saw our vlog, you saw our Q&A live stream where a ton of fans tuned in and asked you questions. But I guess the first one, just, what was it like kind of being back in the sprint car, and especially after, running all those outlaw kart races, transitioning back into that, and then now back behind the wheel of a sprint car?
No, it was really fun. I had a really fun weekend. I was getting back in it, like you said. I had to learn the steps of it again. And I felt I was definitely more confident in myself towards the end of the night because I've had more laps in. But in the beginning of the night, I was kind of just not on my game, I guess.
So when you, I know this was a big issue, your very first race, was the steering wheel factor. Did you get that squared away?
Yeah, we figured that out like right away for a mud pack. I figured it out.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think on the GoPro, it's just every driver's different too, because like I watched her GoPro back and to me, it looked messed up in certain spots. I know you kind of got it figured out, but just every driver's different. And I even remember, like, for myself, trying to figure it out at the beginning. I actually had a Colton Heath, another driver in the Northwest. He came over to my trailer like, man, last year at Skagit, and he's like, hey, I was watching some of your GoPro footage. Why don't you try your steering wheel like this or this to help with, so you're not just so much at war with the wheel. And that's the biggest thing for, young drivers and stuff. So Carly's getting that all figured out. I think one of the things really to mention is running at Cottage Grove. That's where right now you're kind of in the steps of learning the sprint car. For my first race, it was the Southern Oregon Speedway, and then I ran a little bit at Cottage Grove. But like, how important do you think that's your track that you're running at? Because, it is wide, it's got a lot of room to race, and there's also a good field of competition to learn to race with.
Yeah, I think it's a good learning track, especially since I've been there watching you and other drivers and trying to figure out what I need to do so that when I get in that car and go out there, then I can try to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that really makes sense. And I think one thing about Cottage Grove, too, you guys see in the videos, like, there's no outside wall, which is another interesting factor. And, like, do you think that makes, like, the top more intimidating? Because I know you guys saw it in the vlog probably, but Carly tried to run the top a little bit in the heat race, even in the A-main event. But, like, not having a wall up there, does that kind of give you, like, more confidence to go up there and run? Because, if you make a mistake, you're just going to fly off? Or, if I know you haven't ran with the wall, but, still.
I think, every time I went up there in the main, and it was just so dusty. I couldn't see where it was at. So I was like, maybe I probably should just stay on the bottom. I knew where the grip was on the bottom. So I was like, why don't I just stay down there? But then in the heat race, it was just hard for me. I didn't know where to enter. That was my biggest point. Like, do I enter? Do I wait? Do I, enter by the flag stand? Like, I didn't know where to enter. So that was one of my hardest things I was trying to learn.
And I think another thing to mention, like in any type of racing, like we run outlaw karts. Like another place we run the top is like Cycleland Speedway, for example. In the sprint car, a couple times you're like right behind someone. When you're following someone like that close into the corner, did that feel like that possibly like messed you up on corner entry, trying to hit the top side? Because I know a lot of times you're in the bottom, which we're really going to dive into as we kind of go through the night. But just some initial questions, like, do you feel like following someone that made it more difficult too?
Well, if I was following someone, I probably should have went up to the top. Like if I was following them into the bottom, I probably should have went up to the top. But I just had a feeling that they would probably mess up coming out of their entry on bottom. So that's kind of why I mainly just stayed on the bottom, because I felt like I had that speed and it was just pretty tacky down there.
Gotcha. No, that's super interesting. Like one of the hardest things, as a sprint car guy, there's so many challenges. But definitely like figuring out how to run different lines and where to run them and at what time to drop down low or go up high. So to kind of go through the night, really, starting from the beginning, we left home. The Holmes family, you guys, we've talked about it. We have always got to be one of the first people to the track.
Absolutely.
And it's all of us. We don't really care. But like my dad, John, you guys have heard him. He's going to be on the podcast here sooner or later. But the truck driver for us, father, crew chief, everything. The list goes on, but we had to be there. I have it noted. 12:35 is when we pulled into the Cottage Grove Speedway.
How far is it from home?
Like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. So we
But-
left at 10-ish,
Yeah.
9:30, 10-ish.
Probably 9:30.
The whole way there, Dad is hauling. Like he was driving like we were late. And guess what? We got there.
12:35.
12:35. Guess what? Gates opened at 2. Gates opened at 2, and we were on a rampage to get there.
So normally they actually let us in, but way before, and then you walk back and get your pit pass. Well, they're like, no, like you got us park and like stay. So we just had to stay outside the gates.
Which was kind of surprising too, because usually, like you said, they let us in. So we were like first in line, and even though we got there early, a ton of people still passed us. I don't know why, whatever, because probably just we have a little bit of bigger rig. But I just thought that was something interesting, and maybe for anybody listening on audio or video, if you have a family member that has to be at the races like that, like let us know, or if you have a little story. But my dad, no matter what, we have to be the first in line at every racetrack. We got to be Cottage Grove in the past, actually, funny story. Carly can back me up here. But we used to have a reserved spot.
Yeah, a fan. Wasn't it a fan like bought it?
Yeah, one of our family friends slash fan actually purchased that for us. Chad Tarr, if he's watching the episode. But Carly can back me up. We literally would have a reserved spot, and we are still the first people there.
One of the funny things about that is does he get there because he's worried he's not going to get a spot, or like?
I can't tell you.
Well, one of the things I was going to say is when we get there, because I've been to so many races with you guys. The car's ready to go most of the time. So there's really not much I think, you're not parked in.
The only time we get there or try to get there early is like on speed week. We drive straight to the nights we get there, wake up, clean the car, grease it or whatever. But like, it's a 1-day show. We're there like 3 hours ahead.
Yeah. So
there's one time he's got a little slack, and that was I think the last race at Roseburg in the outlaw cart.
Yeah,
we got there kind of late for an outlaw cart race. So.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. So that's something we'll definitely save to ask my father in the notes when he comes on the podcast. That's going to be an interesting episode in itself. So as far as going after that, we got our pit passes, got through the gate, got our normal spot, because Cottage Grove is like a pretty small pit area. It really is. It's just like a nice big.
It's like a V.
Yeah,
it's a V.
Yeah, it's weird. And actually, Cottage Grove has seen a lot of support from every division, not just the sprint cars. So they even had cars parked out front in the overflow, kind of where originally the parking lot was. I think we had about 92 cars in total. And I think one of the things maybe you could touch on, because, this was something I know that you and Dad were kind of going back and forth with, but they had us so packed in the pit area, we couldn't even park our meal next to the trailer.
Yeah, we had to park the meal behind the car, which kind of made it hard because we couldn't have the back of it open to get to the toolbox. So every time you wanted the toolbox, you either had to move it forward or move it backwards and then open it up and then close it when you're done. Like, you just can't, leave that stuff open like you normally would.
Yeah, so we were trying to get a spot open next to us, and have room, but it just, how it worked out, it just didn't actually is the best way to say it. So
I was going to say, did you guys have, all sprint cars by you, or were they, other divisions?
I think it was a modified.
No, we had a modified to our left.
Yeah,
modified to our left. We had another limited sprint to our right, and then after that limited sprint, it was I think a modified, a street stock, couple more mods, because on tap we had the Hornets weren't there. They were, so the sport compacts weren't there, but we had both modified divisions, street stocks, wing sprint cars, and late models, which it seems like Cottage Grove, the other classes don't race as well, which we'll kind of touch on here in a second. I have a note, because at one point during the night, every class just crashed all night long, which kind of kept us there a little bit later. But I think one of the first things, that a lot of fans kind of actually asked in my fan question thing on my Instagram, but before the races, we get unloaded, everything's done. We got our 22C stickers on there. Carly and Dad put those on the car, which those went on pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it was simple.
So you didn't like what me and Tanner did last time?
Yeah, the 18TC. So yeah, for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about there, the last time Carly just had my same wrap on, and we just put a C next to the T with duct tape, and it made for a pretty funny bit in the vlog. But so what's your pre-race deal kind of going into the night? Once everything's unloaded and it's pretty much not go time, but in between, getting your pit pass and then hitting the racetrack for mud pack. For you, are you nervous? Are you excited? Are you feeling kind of everything? And how do you kind of deal with that?
Well, for one, I'm a very impatient person kind of thing. So just sitting there waiting was kind of bothering me, just because I want to get out on the track and I want to feel the track and feel what the track's already going to do before we get to hot laps, in packing. What's the track going to feel like? Is it going to be greasy for hot laps, or is it going to be hooked up, or what is it going to be?
Do you feel like a lot of those, sometimes as a driver, do you sometimes tend to feel like you overthink in a way? Is that kind of part of it? Like I know for myself, one thing that maybe bothers, for example, with getting to the racetrack so early, or it's just the same as and Bennett can jump in on this too, his thoughts, but like if I get to staging too early for my heat race, like let's say I'm 3 heat races ahead for some reason, like I accidentally get in too soon, I hate sitting in the car because then all of a sudden I'm just overthinking situations. Same as like Dad likes to get to the track so early, so it gives you more time just to think about the situation at hand.
I think one thing I know with you for sure is if we have like a lot of downtime, probably like if it's a 2-day show or something, the next day, me and you are always filming something.
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of keep your mind off stuff. All the way up to hot laps is filming.
Yeah.
So with Carly, you don't really, you
don't do
I just kind of work on the car.
or hang around.
Which is true.
So now you're not working on the car, you're driving. What do you do? Like, do you just...
Well, I mean, my crew chief didn't really help out much, right, Tanner?
Oh, I talking about me. Yeah, I mean, well, see, my job. So, unfortunately, Bennett wasn't able to make it up, and like it was only a 1-night deal too. So, like, my job was like, all right, anything media related, I'm gonna try to do everything. So, like throughout the night, I was trying to take photos. I was trying to do the vlog, do some cinematography shots, like everything. Get shots for Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Just kind of like I said, the normal. And so, yes, I was not helping as much as I guess,
It was still me working on the car.
Carly did a great job, which, so is that what you would say? Like, obviously as the night gets started, like that's something in between. If you are impatient, like working on the car, like finding your own little thing helps with, that pre-race deal.
Yeah, whether if it's scraping off mud or changing shocks or changing tires, whatever I can to do, keep my mind off. Okay, I start here in the next race. Like, what can I do? So I kind of like, I keep that thought until like I am out on the track.
Okay, absolutely. And I think another kind of spin-off of that, which I'm not sure if you do, but one of the fans really wanted us to make sure we touched on, and all 3 of us can chime in for this, but do you have like a pre-race ritual that you do? I know you said you're impatient, but like, is there anything before, and this could even be before a race, because like, for example, one of the things that I always do is, like I always tuck in the bottom part of my suit, the underneath part, like into my shoes, like little things like that. But is there anything before the night that you do, or you just kind of like to go race?
No, I just like to get out there, work on the car, and go race.
I think for me, I don't know. I think sometimes, like, depending on the race, I'll say a prayer, maybe like a quick one,
Absolutely.
I do that, yeah.
If it's probably the big show,
yeah.
I do that. But most of the time, I think that's just about it.
Yeah,
Nothing really physical.
I know Mom will sometimes, like, for myself or you, just depending, like, especially like Red Bluff or something, always say a quick prayer before we go out. Another thing that, like, I do kind of before the green, and I mean, this would also, I kind of consider like a pre-race ritual or something, but like before, like, I always like kind of like tug on my gloves and stuff, like little things like that.
Because my gloves are like a little bit like loose on me. They don't fully fit me yet. So I'm always pulling them up and everything before we get out.
Do you
on the
click
track.
the steering wheel at all?
No.
That's good. Don't do it.
Yeah, see, that's a problem that I have.
Actually, I think I did it in the main, but then I was like,
like maybe once or twice.
No, I did it in the heat race on that red flag. I was like, I shouldn't have done that. Or maybe hot laps. I don't know.
Well, I mean, and that's fair, like once or twice. I mean, I'm talking like a serious problem of like click, like click,
No,
like as much as you can.
I don't do that because I feel like it's gonna get messed up. My wheel's gonna be all jacked.
That's around, yeah.
No, that definitely makes sense. So now I guess diving into the racing part of it, like what were the track conditions like from your point of view? Because actually, one thing I think we could say, Cottage Grove was prime, and for a learning track, it got wide, plenty of room to race. You weren't trying, because I think as like a new driver, like especially I knew, watching other people and how I felt when I first started, like the track was wide open and trying to race on that, it's really hard because you're trying to figure out how fast the car can go and what you can do with it. And when you have to race at that pace, it's very difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I think I mean, you were telling me like all week I just need to go out there and go full throttle for hot laps. And I was like, okay, I got out there and I was like, okay, I guess I could try. But then I think I got like 3/4 of the way down. Like I don't know. My foot just didn't want to go that far. So maybe it was good that I didn't.
And one of the things, can you tell the viewers and kind of share with them the one struggle? You said your first race, it was your steering wheel. But another thing, not being in the car for a while, what was it in qualifying with your feet and actually the pedal?
Well, I think it happened actually in October too when I raced it. Was my foot doesn't go like all the way in. It like stops like at my toes. So it's really weird. So I don't get my full foot in the pedal, which I probably should work on because that'd probably let me go full throttle.
Yeah, that's a quick funny thing you said there. Tanner told you to go full throttle. Like he just told you to go wide open.
Yeah, and I didn't.
Well,
it was a little hard.
Something we're working on a little behind the scenes, which will come out in a later date. maybe a driver swap. Tanner told me when I go out on the limited, just go full throttle. Yeah. And I was like, dude, what do you mean? This would be my first time.
It's hard. It's hard.
To explain on that, so like, yes, okay, maybe it doesn't sound, what I'm saying doesn't sound right. I guess like what I mean is, okay, so the race car, if you can, like once you get over the initial speed adjustment of the limited.
It's not that fast, really.
It's really not that fast once you get over it. Don't get me wrong. When you first get in it, you're going to be like, oh, like, it feels quick. The first time you step on the gas, it does feel quick. But once you get up to full speed in like Cottage Grove, for example, there's so much banking, it's going to hold you. Like I promise, like you won't have to lift, it all just depends on like track conditions and everything. And like I told Carly that in hot laps in the track or qualifying, the track ended up being slicker than I thought, which I think, did that throw you off? Because in qualifying, there was a nice slick patch, couple feet wide, maybe a car length or two through 1 and 2. And then 3 and 4 was a little bit more gripped up. But like, rolling out there, the track's already slicking off at the start of the night. Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys are trying to tell me to run like a little bit above the middle or whatever. And I tried, but the car, like, I felt more comfortable by turning down. So I would enter high, but I would turn down a little too early. So I'd be coming off the bottom, which kind of slowed me down a little bit.
So do you, I know Tanner's a huge fan of slick track racing. Now that you've got 2 nights in, do you like a tacky or slick track?
I love a tacky. I don't know. The slick was not working for me.
So it's just, you probably just got honed in your skills, would you say?
It's just,
even on the bottom was tacky, and I was really fast on it. Like, I was, coming off the corner and going, so.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we really touched on throughout the night was, like, as in a sprint car, you just got to go where the grip's at. Sprint cars need that grip, and, like, when you find something that's faster than the cars in front of you, and I think this was actually something we really hit on in episode 2 when we had you on, was, like, the closing rate in a sprint car, and also when you do run a different line, how you really do notice that closing rate if you hit something right. Like when you run the bottom in the feature and you were able to hit it right, and if a guy slid off of it, you were going to blow their doors off.
Exactly, yeah. So I think actually a few cars, they would try to run the middle and get past me, or like we were going 3 wide, but I was there on bottom, and I would go, and they would be back there still, so.
Yeah, and I think one thing to kind of go back a little bit to earlier in the night, because I had a couple questions. One thing that I know can kind of help a driver reset, because, your first laps weren't at a practice night this year. You didn't get a chance to do a play day. You were right in the car for mud pack and then right into hot laps / qualifying, because Cottage Grove, you don't get hot laps, which kind of unfortunate, but I get it. They have just so many cars. So for you, there was actually a red flag. One of the other racers unfortunately got over the edge and hit the wall and wrecked pretty big. And so you got like 1 lap in, and then you got to do a red flag and stop for a second. And like in the stands with Mom and Carissa, one of the things we were talking about is like, this is probably a reset for you. You got like a lap in, and kind of take your breath and then really actually process, how to take on those next couple qualifying laps.
Yeah, I think that red flag actually probably helped me, like you were saying, because my mind reset and was like, okay, now I should do this, because I didn't really feel fast there, so I should move up or, move down or whatever.
Yeah, okay, that definitely makes sense, and that's exactly what I thought, because I know, especially one thing in sprint cars, as you keep racing, and in anything, honestly, too, outlaw karts, whatever, you get on these long, intense races, and those red flags can, like, literally be your best friend, so.
I'm going to have to disagree there, I think.
Really?
Because if I'm racing and I get in a red flag, I start thinking of scenarios, and I don't like that. When I'm rolling, like, on a long run, like when we were racing nationals at 250s in the 250 class and we got a couple red flags, I just stop and I'm like, okay, there's 1,000 scenarios now on a restart on what you could do. Whereas I feel like when I'm just getting laps, I'm thinking what I need to do each lap better, and I think that helps me. And I don't like red flags.
Really, that's interesting.
Like Tanner and everyone else was like, "Did you guys see that guy flip?" And I'm like, "No," because he was in front of me, right? But I was like, "No." Like when I'm racing the sprint car, it's weird. I'm looking down, like at my nose wing, and looking at the line I'm gonna run. I'm not like in the go-kart, I'm looking ahead, right? Mm-hmm. So it was weird. I was like, I didn't see that guy flip.
Can you kind of explain for everyone listening to like how sitting different, how that also affects how you're racing? You said you're so focused forward. Another thing, which it shouldn't, I don't think it messes a lot of drivers up, but you do have to look through a rock screen in a sprint car because we have our rock screens. But like, looking at the nose wing, how are you kind of figuring out the size of your race car and using different points maybe to look at to know where you're at on the racetrack?
Well, so I put a cushion on my seat, so I sit up a little bit higher, so I actually can see a little bit of my like the top of my front wheel. So I kind of know when to turn. That I feel like that really helps me a lot, which I probably should get out of the habit of that. 'Cause you can. Yeah.
I can't see unless like I kind of like really try to look up. I could see my front
I
front tires.
can see mine a little bit. So
which there's probably nothing necessarily wrong with that, but
yeah. So I think that actually helps me a little bit. But later in the night, actually, like in the heat race and in the main, when there's people around me, that's when I was looking ahead. So I don't know. That was kind of weird, I thought.
And I think outlaw karts too help with that because we're so used to, like, if we have to race back to the yellow, which racing back to the yellow is where there's a crash, the racing doesn't stop until we race all the way back to the flag stand. I think that really helps for, like, and get in a sprint car, being able to look ahead, but also race at the same pace with cars around you. So going through the heat race, you got some more laps in the heat race. You were faster than qualifying. You looked more consistent. You got off the edge of 2 one time. You got over the edge a little bit, just a little.
Yeah, I was just, because like I said, I didn't know. I was just trying to figure out where I needed to enter, and I think I entered just a little bit too high, and then that's when I got off. But besides that, I mean, I felt like I was definitely a lot better in the main.
Oh, 100%. And so for the A-main, you rolled off 11th. You're supposed to roll off 13th, but another driver did not, or no, he didn't make the call. He had an issue.
He, stopped under, the push-out time or whatever.
Gotcha. So Carly rolls off 11th, and in the video, you'll hear me yelling.
13th. It was 13th.
Oh,
yeah,
13th.
I started 15th, yeah.
Oh, okay. So Carly rolled off 13th. In the video, you hear me actually yelling because I was videoing the races. Like, at one point, you got rolling really, really good. Can you talk about, like, the rhythm you got in? And I think as a younger driver, the bottom is a little bit more appealing at Cottage Grove because, you don't have to worry about flying off the edge. So how did you get on that rhythm around the bottom? And, how did you feel that was different from maybe earlier in the night and, like the progress you made really hitting your marks consistently lap after lap?
One thing that really just wanted me to, do better at was my RPMs. When Dad told me that my RPMs were down from the first time I ran, I was like, okay, that kind of, it didn't put me down, but it put me in a stage where I was like, okay, I need to get those up.
Can you kind of touch on that a little bit from what you mean from?
Okay, so I think the highest RPMs are an 85.
So the engine, we have a tack. We have a tack.
Yeah. So the RPMs basically, I think the highest is an 85, and I was running a 66 or something.
60, I think it was 70. I think it was 70.
I don't know, something like that. And so I was like, wow, I'm almost 2,000s of a second off or whatever. And so I really need to get those up. And it didn't put me down, like I said. It just put me in a stage of mine was I need to get those up. I need
drive
to
it harder.
Yeah, I need to drive the car harder. I need to be on the gas more like that. So that gave me a lot of confidence to be on the gas more. And I think actually I was full throttle on the straightaway, but that was because I was in the slicks. My tires were just spinning and stuff, but I still went full throttle, so I was proud of myself at the end of
that. And I think to elaborate a little bit more, like she was saying, RPM, we have the tack on the sprint car, right? And we're able to see the RPMs versus an outlaw kart, we run Micron 4, Micron 5, whatever, and that tells you a little bit more, but so the tack you can see, and you can see our highs and our lows. And so, Carly just mentioned, her highs were much higher last time when she ran the car. And part of that, was just you're getting back in the seat. You're trying to figure things out. And you have that a little bit more of a conservative mindset, which is perfect because I think, that's obviously that's better for the equipment. That's better for us. It's going to make Mom feel a lot better watching you. So your highs throughout the night kept getting higher and higher, close to that 8,500 mark, which is kind of the range, maybe 8,500 or a little bit lower, what that limited would turn. So I think in the A, you got closer to it and you really worked the bottom side of the racetrack. And one of the things before the A2, we were kind of contemplating changing gears, and we ended up changing gears, right?
Yes, we changed the gear because we were trying to figure out, because Roger, the crew guy, was asking, he's like, are you really going to run the bottom? Or are you going to run where are you going to run? And I told him I was probably just going to stay on bottom because that's where I started. I was like, I might as well stay on the bottom, feel the bottom out. I'm just trying to learn. So then my next time I race, I can try to do both.
Yeah, and I think how we had it kind of set up was for kind of if I was running the car or anyone, kind of just to drive it really, really hard and be able to run the top and run the bottom. But when you kind of committed to the bottom, we can start changing things around. And that's one thing that's great about a sprint car. So at one point you're up to 7th. And then after that, you ended up getting lapped because of just how it all played out.
Yeah,
at one point you're up to 7th, and then they I feel like the scoring was off, but you were all close.
I passed the guys or whatever, then a yellow came out, then I got put back 2 or 3 positions, and so it kind of messed it up, and then I kind of was just falling back from there. Yeah,
so I think really you probably we're going to run about 10th, but because a lot of the lap cars, like Northwest has this rule, I think they call it the Northwest rule, but it's where lap cars stay in line, in between, the leaders and the second or third place car if that leader passes the lap cars and the other guys don't. So you ended up running 13th, though. Cars in one piece. You got all the laps, and you're able to run the top a little bit. Got some experience up there. But what were kind of your final thoughts on the night after it was all said and done?
After it was all said and done, I was very happy about what I did, especially what I conquered on the bottom, like I said. And then I also got the RPMs up. That was my biggest goal for the main, was to just get those RPMs up, prove that I can actually drive the car and I'm not out there just, going slow or whatever. So I was definitely happy.
Do you have any goals moving forward? Do you maybe want to say all right, I want a top 5 now, or any goal?
Kind of
really?
what's that next step maybe?
Well, yeah, because going into the night, Dad was like, you should try a goal. And I was like, okay, let's see, what could it be? So then we talked about it, and we're like, okay, top 10. Well, we didn't get the top 10 we wanted, but now going into the next race, I think we're going to go for that top 10. Maybe top 6 or top 5, I don't know. But now that I have the experience on the bottom, I'm going to shoot for a top 5.
Well, and I think one of the problems that you didn't have in one of your first races, you did a good job. You moved the wing, but you moved the wing more your wing movements throughout the A, which was going back to help with the slicker racetrack as it changed, was right, versus my first race in a limited, I actually had the wing in the trunk. You might remember I had the wing in the trunk and the track was all the way hooked up. I was tighter than tight. So no, you did a great job, and I think that was a great solid first night back in the car.
Yeah, one thing with the wing, though, real quick, it was I don't know if it's hard for you to see while you're racing the wing move. So the only time I actually moved my wing was under yellow, because I flipped my visor up and I'm looking, trying to, because I didn't know really what way, because it's different in an outlaw cart, I think.
Well, in the outlaw cart, you kind of have to really manually do it, which is difficult. It really can be, especially when you're racing. But in the sprint car, it's really nice. At some point, I think most drivers just kind of get, when you're racing, you obviously don't have time to look up. So it's all you just get used to how, if you hit it back, you just kind of have an idea of how far it went back. And if you go forward, you have an idea. But there's obviously no way to really look up, I guess, unless you're at a certain racetrack where you had a lot of time.
Yeah, and my tear-offs. So I switched them for the main, which is a lot better, but I have a habit in hitting my thumb on the steering wheel, because that's on my iRacing steering wheel is the button for the tear-off.
Yeah.
So I don't know if in the GoPro you see it, I'm trying to hit the button. I'm oh wait, this isn't iRacing,
Did you go through a lot of tear-offs throughout the night?
I think I only went through 3 or 4 maybe, but that was because I couldn't pull them off, so it was a struggle.
Oh, that does make sense. Yeah, that's what we always joke. Well, what she's saying too is the Butler builds have the huge right side headrest, so you're probably gonna have to get used to pulling from the left side, and even any seat whatever seat you're gonna have in the dwarf car, I don't know how
it's a big Butler on the right.
Yeah, which makes it tough to pull from the right side. So you just have to get used to using that left hand. But like Bennett mentioned, typical Northwest tracks, man, they're pretty slick. You don't have to use a lot of tear offs throughout the night.
One thing I was gonna ask you, moving forward, I think I'm just gonna make a prediction real quick, because you raced one time last year and that was it. Now you raced, and then next race is gonna be.
Maybe this weekend.
We don't know yet. Yeah, so we're recording.
It's going to be soon, and my prediction is you're going to be a lot better, because you're going to have that experience.
This weekend or the next weekend.
That you're going to carry over.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just that first time getting back in the car. It's just like in anything. If you go run something, that first time is always, every driver is different. Some people are conservative, some people are balls to the wall, and each of them produce a different outcome. But I think, now that you're over that first time, you know what the car is going to do, you're back in the seat. The progression is much quicker from here.
Well, yeah. So the crew guy and I were talking, and he said for sure, probably give it 3 or 4 races, and I'll be up there with those guys. Because if you realize it, third and back are my kind of competition. I mean, yeah, second and first is a whole nother level, but third and back is kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's the limited class for sure. The top guys are really fast and have been running it for a good amount of time. And then after that, it's a lot of guys just jostling for spots. So for sure, I could definitely see you, running up there on a good night. Some nights, it just depends. It just depends where everything shakes out. So a phenomenal night at Cottage Grove for Carly. You got some good laps, rolled it in the trailer in one piece, and that's really all we could ask you for. Now the question is, Bennett kind of brought it up, when you're racing next. So I think it's either going to be this weekend or next. Do you kind of want to explain more on the situation?
Yeah, so if I run this weekend, I'm just going to leave the limited in, because we don't know the 360 or whatever, and I'm not ready to move up yet. But I'll probably just leave the limited in and run with you guys, and they might actually put up some money for the limited driver who
When you say that, do you mean you're going to run a limited with a 360 class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, they might put up money for a person who runs the highest with the limited motor.
The highest finishing limited.
So I might run that, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, we're kind of still in the process of deciding. I think it'd be good for Carly to get laps, and we're not sure how many 360s are going to be there. I mean, we're kind of expecting at least 10 to 15, and then you throw a couple limiteds in, it kind of brings into like a field of 20. And right now we currently only have one 360, which is going to be in my car this weekend. So I'm pumped to get back to Cottage Grove. The racetrack was phenomenal for the feature and really phenomenal all night long, which just, gets me excited. It wasn't rough.
No, it wasn't rough. Like, I remember in October when I ran, the track was a little bit rough on top, and you really had to be careful because if you hit the rut, then you might tip it. But I wasn't, like, worried about that or anything.
Yeah, so a great night overall. We're just going to kind of wrap up this interview with the fan question. And one thing I think just to say, I know we said it earlier, but, man, this was actually really fun kind of doing the interview this way. I think it really produced some great content. Our fan question today was Carly, and this was the one that actually I had this asked multiple times, but Carly, you think if, you were not in a racing family, what do you think you would have been doing here in some of the younger years of your life?
Honestly,
and you can take a second to think about it.
I don't know. I really honestly don't know. I probably would go after a basketball scholarship or something because I like basketball and stuff. I don't want to do it as a sport because I have racing. But I think maybe if I didn't do racing, I would be into a different sport like basketball.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I definitely see you being in basketball because for all the fans that this is kind of behind the scenes, we've been starting to play basketball, three of us at Tanner's. It gets a little physical.
It does get pretty competitive.
Tanner just likes to win all the time. He's just shoving me and stuff.
It gets a little competitive would be the best way to put it. I think that's pretty spot on. Anything like athletic or anything in that field, Carly's a very athletic person. I think that's kind of why you take the racing well too, because racing does take like a more athletic person in a way, or physically fit, whatever the term is you kind of, maybe want to use. But yeah, I think that that definitely would sum up Carly. So thank you so much for joining us here for episode number 14. Carly, we've kind of agreed on Carly's going to probably be back in studio here and there throughout the year. She's just a great guest to really catch up on because you guys love to see her so much. And I think another thing so many people are going to be wondering, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but will Carly be starting a YouTube channel here soon?
I touched this on the Q&A, and I said probably not this year. We'll see how the summer goes, but maybe I might start it for Red Bluff.
I think maybe soon. We'll see. I'm going to keep trying to convince her. But anyway, so that's our interview with Carly for episode number 14. Once again, have a great rest of your night. I'll see you back at home, and we are going to get the studio back into its normal spot.
Thanks for having me.
So that was a lot of fun, kind of get to hear her perspective throughout the night and all the little things from, thoughts pre-race to what's kind of going on inside the car. We talked a little bit about red flags and all of our perspectives on what a red flag does for us as a driver. And then now to kind of move on to the end part of the show, because we did do a fan question with Carly, let's talk about some of the topics that are actually going on in the racing world. One of the main things I wanted to bring up, I did a whole video on the channel, and Bennett was right there when we did this, when we did our Southern Oregon Speedway abandoned video. So the Southern Oregon Speedway, it's our local home track. I'm from Medford. The Southern Oregon Speedway is located in White City, which is just a couple minutes down the road, and it's actually only about 10 minutes here from the studio. We literally can drive right there. It's really, really quick, and it's out at our local sports park. Well, the Southern Oregon Speedway, if you guys had heard, it underwent just a period of time of being vacant because of the pandemic and everything. And it just it didn't. No one used it throughout the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020, I should say, and I think a little bit of the end of 2019 as we saw all that happen. And the future of the Speedway, you would say, we weren't really sure what the future looked like. It was really under question. We weren't sure who was going to step up, and a lot of names were kind of drifting through the air here in the southern part of the state on who was going to be the guy to take it over, because it is a county-owned facility, so it's not just like one person owns it. So someone has to put a bid in. Well, anyway, a bunch of people put bids in for the Speedway, and actually now it has a new owner, you could say, or a new promoter. That's the best word for it. So now they're actually doing a lot of work, and they've been posting on social media. It's been really cool to see. Tons of upgrades are being made. I think they're putting in like new catch fences. They're reconfiguring the racetrack all the way down to the kart track.
Putting a lot more material on it too.
Oh yeah, I know there's new material coming in, and it's going to be really cool to see how that place turns out here for the season. They just released a schedule, so it's been like a whole 180 from that video I had just a couple weeks ago.
And this was one of the fastest turnarounds I think I've ever seen, because like shoot, if you look at the video we posted on it, it looks barren.
Yeah.
And now just the work they've done out there, and not just anyone can go out there right now because they're still waiting on some insurance stuff. So it's only a core group of people that have really just knocked it out of the park so far.
Yeah, they've done a great job, and I'm hoping maybe, if we have a little bit of time, we're hoping to make it to a couple of their play days to do some interesting content that we kind of have in the back of our pocket, but also just to go out there and give you guys an update. Like I'm saying, every single all these weekends they've kind of been able to take advantage of. Their season's going to start at the end of May, which totally understandable. They need more time to work on the facility because they just got it a couple weeks ago. But man, just so much hard work and effort is being put into that, and that's great for our local racetrack. Yeah. I know you're probably going to be racing there quite a few times this season with the dwarf car.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Carly might run a couple races. There's not a whole lot of wing sprint car stuff on their schedule, unfortunately, but I think that's just going to be a slower process to get those guys back involved.
And one thing I do want to mention too is I know on the smaller side of things with the go-kart track is there's a lot of people that we know in the go-kart world that are actually pretty pleased to see that they might be doing something with that track as well.
Oh, 100%. And I'm going to try to support it. If we're home, it's Friday night racing with the Outlaw cart, and if there's nothing going on, if maybe we're running the limited on Saturday and we have nothing going on Friday, maybe try to get like Johnny Burke, our good friend from here, and get a couple people to go support them for the open division, because I think they'll have a couple kids in the younger classes, but there's not a lot of opens in this area. So if we can do something to support them and help them get it back going because of all the effort they are putting in the little track, that's just going to help the future of outlaw kart and dirt racing here in the southern part of Oregon. So
go ahead. I was going to say I might be able to hold the track record for the yard kart division.
Yeah.
So if they get that going, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, get the yard kart running around there. That'd be super sweet. Another topic going on in the dirt racing world, Bristol. The sprint cars will be hitting Bristol, the last great Coliseum this week, or at the end of this week. So that's going to be interesting. I think final thoughts on that, man. It's going to be fast. Yeah. I'm not sure how it's going to race. I think we're just going to really have to see, what it looks like once they hit the track.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching a lot of good all-star racing this weekend and, World of Outlaws as well. I don't know. I agree with you. I think it might be too fast, too banked and straight to be like some of the greatest racing we've ever seen, but it's definitely going to be unique for sure. Because how many years do you know specifically?
I think the last race was 2002 or 2003.
Right. So that's a long time ago, and it's new dirt as well.
Yeah, and I just don't know with the banking and just how the cars have changed over the years. If they're going to be, some people are arguing they're going to be faster, some are arguing they're going to be slower. It's really hard to know what they're going to do. But listening to some of the Outlaw guys talk about it in a couple different interviews I was listening to, they mentioned hopefully the track doesn't have a lot of grip, because they said if it has any grip at all, it's going to be wide open one lane, and that's just very dangerous. I think no matter what, you're going to be able to drive the race car very hard because the banking and just the wing speed and how big the place is. But maybe I'll have to run it a little bit more on iRacing to get a feel for what those guys are going to be going through.
Yeah, I've ran it like a couple times on the iRacing Sling Mud for fun, and they had another server for it, but the sprint cars were unique there for sure. I don't know, when you drove the trucks on iRacing there, you just turn it all the way left and it gets tight and then it connects and then you just drive it off straight. So definitely a sprint car is built for the dirt, so it'll be a whole different ball game.
Yeah, so stay tuned for the Bristol race here at the end of the week. I believe the All-Stars are also competing. USAC probably has some stuff on the schedule, so we're just going to be tuning into everything that we're going to be able to watch. As far, though, as what is up next for us this weekend, you got something pretty fun planned. Do you want to kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so I haven't released anything quite yet because my goal was to release it this week when we went to race. So as you guys might have seen, the factory SBR merch is out. So as of right now, if you see me at the racetrack, you can come get a shirt. It says factory SBR and my quote on the back, just because it's a shitbox don't mean it ain't fast. Quote Bennett Gooch. So I do have those shirts available, medium, large, small, XL, and all that good stuff. But also, I'm friends with someone that races an outlaw kart, Josh Smith, and his son races at Red Bluff. And they made a post about Hayfork Speedway, and they had a play day. And I was like, I want to go.
How far is Hayfork from
Hayfork's probably like an hour and 45 minutes. So they made a post like they're going to have a play day. And I was like, oh, perfect. I'll take the dwarf car up there. Just another place to get more laps. And it's nothing crazy. It's pretty small and pretty low banking. So if it's dry, that would be perfect.
And Hayfork is a pretty small place as well.
It's a really small town.
I was doing some research. I think the population's like 4,000 people. That's like having a dirt track in my little town almost.
Yeah, so it's pretty small. But anyways, he posted at the end of the play day, they were going to have an Enduro Mayhem event. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I saw he commented. He's like, I've got another car. Someone wants to drive it. And so you know, I'm Bennett Gooch, and I comment, I'll drive it. If you got a car, I'll drive it. I don't even know what the event is. All I saw was enduro. So I'm thinking, you know, it's going to be a long, like 300 laps or something. Well, no, it's completely different. So he's going to put me in the Chase Smith Motorsports car. And what it is it goes around the track, but on the front stretch, there's a stack of tires, and you have to make a loop around it. So you're making like an oval with a loop, and it's the last car standing wins. $500, a sick trophy, and the first car out is $100 payday. But I'm driving a Honda Civic, I think, that's got a roll cage in it, and the goal of the race is to survive and take people out. So I don't know what to expect, but I'm excited.
Yeah, that is going to be pretty fun to watch. You're going to be vlogging it, right, and doing the whole behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'll probably have 2 videos. I'll have the test day in the dwarf car, and then the second video that comes out will be the whole enduro main thing.
That's perfect.
So we'll see if we could pick up our second endurance racing main event.
Yeah, that's going to be so fun to follow along with. As far as what our weekend looks like, we are going to be running the Cottage Grove Spring Fling. Carly might be running. I'm for sure running, though. It's a 360 race. $1,500 to win on Friday and $2,500 to win Saturday. So that's really good pay. Props to Cottage Grove and everyone that put up money so, you know, we can race for a good payday. And obviously we're hoping to put it in victory lane. So I think that's going to kind of wrap up here episode number 14. We have some really fun guest episodes that are going to be coming out soon. And one of the things we're trying to do is some of those guests try to revolve around some of the races we're going to with maybe different promoters or drivers to really give you guys a behind the scenes look and just more information on where we're going to be at. So that is episode number 14. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or right here every single Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. on the Off the Track YouTube channel. Bennett, good luck this weekend. We're going to go get him.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.